Hello everyone. Alla Alexenko, a 54-year-old mother of two, lived in Russia. She had been the sole provider for her family since her husband passed away prematurely, juggling 5 jobs to raise her children to adulthood. In 2007, motivated by unconditional love, Alla made the life-changing decision to send her youngest daughter, Nadia, to New York to further her studies. Their bond remained strong despite the distance, with Nadia making it a habit to call her mother daily for years. However, everything changed on October 5, 2014. As usual, Nadia called her mother, but this time, there was no response. Initially, she thought Alla might be busy, but after several unanswered calls, worry began to set in. Over the next few hours, Nadia frantically tried to reach her mother, making over 100 calls in vain. Desperate, Nadia decided to contact Victoria, a 38-year-old stylish and seemingly close neighbor who had been mentioned frequently by Alla in recent conversations. Nadia hoped Victoria might know something about her mother's whereabouts. Victoria told Nadia that she had last seen Alla on October 4th, when they had tea and talked at Alla's apartment. According to Victoria, Alla left to meet friends, and that was the last time they saw each other. She reassured Nadia that her mother was probably fine and had simply forgotten her phone. But Nadia wasn't convinced. Her suspicions weren't baseless. A month earlier, Alla had mentioned that Victoria planned to visit New York and had been entrusted with 2 mink coats and $6,000 in cash to deliver to Nadia. However, Victoria repeatedly delayed the trip, citing vague reasons. Nadia's unease grew further during a phone call with her mother on October 4th. When Alla revealed that Victoria's trip had been canceled. This prompted Alla to inquire about retrieving the items she had given her. The discovery that Victoria was the last person Alla spoke to only deepened Nadia's suspicions. Victoria knew about Alla's inheritance, $53,000, in cash stored at her apartment after the recent passing of Alla's mother. Determined to act, Nadia accessed her mother's phone records online. The last call made from Alla's phone was at 11 p.m. on October 4th, and the recipient was none other than Victoria. Without hesitation, Nadia booked a flight back to Russia. Upon arrival, she immediately filed a police report, detailing her suspicions and the events leading up to her mother's disappearance. Police investigations focused on both Alla's and Victoria's apartments. At Victoria's residence, emotions ran high when Nadia confronted her. Grabbing Victoria by the collar, she demanded, "Where is my mother? Tell me now, or I swear I'll kill you." Under pressure, Victoria nervously claimed, "Your mother is still alive." This unexpected statement alarmed both Nadia and the police, who decided to investigate further. When they searched Alla's apartment, they found signs of a thorough cleaning, which seemed deliberate. More disturbingly, valuables, including cash, jewelry, and Alla's passport, were missing. These clues suggested foul play, with Victoria as the prime suspect. Victoria's cryptic remark, "Your mother is still alive," added to the mounting suspicion. Why would she bring up life or death without being asked? The police, however, lacked concrete evidence to make an arrest. Sensing the growing scrutiny, Victoria moved out of her apartment and stayed with a female friend. But Nadia refused to relent. She approached Victoria's friend, explaining the gravity of the situation and urging her to observe Victoria's behavior. The friend recalled an odd incident. Victoria had visited her recently with a bottle of Hennessy, visibly anxious and muttering the words, "I'm very scared." This detail further fueled Nadia's suspicions. Her mother Alla's favorite drink was Hennessy, and this, combined with the last phone call, strengthened the theory that Victoria was the last person to see her mother. While Nadia was trying to piece things together, she and her brother unexpectedly received a text message from an unknown number. The message read, "Don't look for me. I'm very happy. I want to live for myself." At first glance, this seemed like a reassuring note from Alla. However, the unfamiliar number and the circumstances surrounding the message made Nadia feel increasingly uneasy. The mounting evidence pointed strongly toward Victoria. Although there wasn't any direct proof, the police at least had enough to detain her temporarily to prevent her from fleeing. Strangely, after Nadia presented her findings to the police, they simply replied, "Don't worry. Your mother will return." This response left Nadia utterly baffled. Previously, the police had acknowledged that her mother might be in danger, but now their attitude had shifted dramatically. Had they discovered something new? Holding on to this possibility, Nadia decided to wait a few more days. Unexpectedly, this waiting period stretched into over 6 months. During this time, Nadia repeatedly visited the police station, urging them to investigate. Instead of taking action, the officers appeared indifferent and even nicknamed her the crazy American girl. Realizing she couldn't rely on the authorities, Nadia decided to take matters into her own hands. She began distributing flyers, posting missing person notices, and seeking help from anyone who might have information. Although Nadia received a few leads, they all turned out to be dead ends. Desperate, she confronted Victoria once again. Nadia bluntly stated that if Victoria revealed her mother's whereabouts, everything could be resolved peacefully. Despite her relentless questioning, all Nadia got from Victoria was the same evasive answer: "I don't know." This left her at a crossroads, unsure whether to continue the search. But then, an unexpected event gave her a spark of hope. Nadia was caught speeding by a traffic camera. This incident sparked an idea. She realized that regardless of where her mother had gone, everything must have started from her apartment. If she could access surveillance footage from the area, she might uncover the truth about her mother's disappearance. Fortunately, in Russia, money could buy almost anything. Nadia spent a significant amount of money to obtain surveillance footage from cameras within a 100-kilometer radius of her mother's apartment. After days of tirelessly reviewing the footage, Nadia finally discovered a crucial clue. In a video from October 5th at 10 a.m., surveillance cameras captured Victoria driving a car. In the passenger seat sat a distressed-looking woman. Although the footage wasn't clear, Nadia immediately recognized the woman. It was her mother. This video shattered Victoria's claim of not knowing anything. While it wasn't enough to convict her, it provided a basis for the police to arrest her. However, when Nadia presented the video to the police, they revealed they had already seen it. They had traced the car's license plate and identified it as a rental, with Victoria as the lessee. Despite the mounting evidence implicating Victoria, the police still didn't act. Furious, Nadia demanded an explanation, but received no satisfactory answer. A few days later, the police summoned Victoria for questioning and subjected her to a polygraph test. During the interrogation, Victoria repeatedly lied, even denying evidence, including the surveillance footage. However, the polygraph results wouldn't be available for 48 hours, so the police couldn't detain her immediately. Tragically, by the time the results came in, Victoria had disappeared. The police issued an international arrest warrant, but this wasn't enough to calm Nadia's anger. She confronted the police and uncovered a horrifying truth. One of the officers involved in the case had leaked information to Victoria, enabling her escape. Though enraged, Nadia was powerless to act. In April 2015, Alla's body was discovered in a forest about 3 hours' drive from her apartment, ironically, in Victoria's hometown. After her mother's funeral in January 2016, Nadia returned to New York, heartbroken but determined to make Victoria pay. The problem was that no one knew where Victoria was. Undeterred, Nadia thought of Facebook, a platform Victoria, known for chasing trends, might be using. Sure enough, she found Victoria's account. Victoria flaunted her wealth on Facebook, posting pictures of luxury cars, extravagant jewelry, and a lavish lifestyle. However, something about the background of the photos seemed oddly familiar. Upon closer inspection, Nadia realized they featured streetscapes of New York City. With this critical discovery, Nadia wasted no time. She wrote to immigration services, providing details about Victoria and identifying her as an internationally wanted criminal. Yet, after sending the letter, she received no response. Determined to continue her search, Nadia hired a private investigator named Herman, a seasoned professional with 20 years of experience at the NYPD before opening his own detective agency. Herman meticulously analyzed every photo Victoria had posted on Facebook. In one selfie, Victoria was seated in a car wearing Le Prung sunglasses, smiling. Remarkably, through the reflection in her sunglasses, Herman spotted the car's dashboard and identified the interior color scheme. white, and blue. With these discoveries, Herman decided his next step was to visit the largest parking lot in New York, where most car models on the market could be found, to identify the car in the photo. As he anticipated, after thoroughly searching, Herman found a Chrysler with a dashboard and interior that matched the one in Victoria's photo. Herman's next move was to revisit Victoria's Facebook page. This time, however, he wasn't looking at photos, but instead analyzing the comments she received and the people she interacted with. Herman noticed that Victoria's primary interactions were with local businesses, all concentrated in Brooklyn, near the Sheepshead Bay area, a neighborhood known for its Russian immigrant community. Armed with this information, Herman sent someone to Sheepshead Bay to search for the Chrysler. It didn't take long before they identified the target. By checking the vehicle's license plate, Herman obtained the name and address of its owner. When he first visited the address, it wasn't hard to recognize it. The street matched the background in Victoria's photo perfectly. Herman decided to remain discreet and started surveillance. A few days later, he observed a couple walking together, and the woman's attire was identical to Victoria's in her selfies. What made the situation even more surprising was that the location was only 4 blocks away from Nadia's house. With all clues pointing to Victoria's connection to the place, new challenges emerged. If the Russian police reported her to the U.S. authorities, apprehending an international criminal would not be straightforward. Nevertheless, Herman refused to give up. He noticed that although Victoria flaunted a luxurious lifestyle on Facebook, her finances couldn't possibly rely solely on the money she had stolen from Alla. This implied she had another source of income. However, given her beauty but lack of substantial skills, earning large sums of money wasn't easy. Strangely enough, Herman didn't have to dig too deeply to uncover a crucial detail. U.S. authorities were already investigating Victoria, and her location had been precisely identified. When she arrived in New York, Victoria had taken on a rather peculiar job catering mainly to married men. This was no coincidence, but a deliberate strategy. In fact, selling her body was only a small part of Victoria's scheme. Her main operation involved using drugs to incapacitate these men and then stealing their money. Because these men were married, they were reluctant to speak out after being robbed. Furthermore, no one could catch Victoria in the act. One such incident involved a man named Ruben from Queens. After meeting online, Victoria invited Ruben to her home, persistently offering him food and drinks. However, after taking a bite of fish she served, Ruben unexpectedly lost consciousness, unable to explain why. During this time, Victoria took advantage of the situation to steal $1,000 in cash and his credit card, subsequently spending $2,400. After committing the theft, Victoria escorted Ruben to a dry cleaning shop, telling the staff he had drunk too much. However, the staff wasn't easily fooled. They quickly noticed the difference between intoxication and unconsciousness. As soon as Victoria left, they called 911. Ruben spent 2 days in the hospital before regaining consciousness, narrowly escaping death. Oddly enough, the hospital couldn't determine the cause of his coma. With no evidence to incriminate Victoria, the case seemed to be forgotten. However, a similar incident involving Olga, a Ukrainian immigrant, on August 29, 2016, reignited suspicion. Olga fell into a coma while working in her own home. Like Ruben, she had no idea what had caused it. When she regained consciousness, Olga discovered that all her valuables were gone, including critical documents like her ID and work permit. Olga later contacted the police, revealing that just before she lost consciousness, she had been working with Victoria, a regular client. Victoria had invited her over to fix her eyelashes. Since it was Olga's day off and no one else was at the studio, she agreed to invite Victoria to her home out of friendship. When Victoria arrived, she brought a small gift, 3 pastries. She continuously praised their taste and encouraged Olga to try them. Out of politeness, Olga took a bite, but immediately felt nauseous and blacked out. Although it couldn't be proven that Victoria had drugged her, the case was once again dismissed. Despite being unable to take legal action against Victoria, Olga didn't give up. She shared her story with others to express her anger and frustration over Victoria's actions. What was striking was that one customer, after hearing Olga's story, was shocked to discover that her friends had experienced nearly identical incidents. Herman, deeply intrigued by this case. Through a client, he managed to get in touch with a friend. Initially, both parties thought it was merely a coincidence, but upon further investigation, they uncovered a startling truth. The suspect's name was Victoria, and another photograph confirmed that she was indeed the woman they were searching for. Now, one might wonder, who was this client's friend? It turned out to be none other than Ruben, the owner of the dry cleaning store. It could be said that fate has a way of weaving connections in the shadows. Two victims had unwittingly helped the police piece together the fragments of the case. When the authorities reviewed the evidence, they confirmed that Victoria was a repeat offender, making her even more of a priority. An investigation was promptly launched, and soon, the police discovered the poisoning method Victoria employed. Victoria used a drug called Benasai. It wasn't a poison or a sedative, but a medication for treating schizophrenia, primarily imported from Russia. Since this drug was banned in the United States, Victoria exploited it for her malicious purposes. Although highly effective, Benasai became dangerous when exposed to high temperatures. Victoria's strategy was chillingly calculated. She raised the heating system in Olga's home to the maximum, creating the conditions for the drug to induce a coma. Victoria's intentions were far from simple. She not only wanted to harm Olga, but also aimed to eliminate Ruben, who had been involved in fabricating Victoria's identity. However, without concrete evidence, the police couldn't take immediate action against her. Coincidentally, retired NYPD Detective Herman stepped in. Utilizing his connections at the department, he provided critical information about Victoria. On March 20th, 2017, Victoria was finally arrested on charges of murder, theft, and several other offenses. Yet a puzzling question lingered in everyone's minds. Victoria was known for seducing men for money, but she didn't seem like someone who sought to kill. If all she wanted was money, why didn't she let Ruben regain consciousness? And why did she attempt to kill Olga, who wasn't linked to financial gain? The truth emerged. Victoria aimed to steal Olga's identity to evade an international arrest warrant from Russia. She believed that by assuming Olga's identity, she could live safely in the US, where legal proceedings often moved at a slower pace. However, unforeseen circumstances, namely the global pandemic, delayed the trial until January 2023. Ultimately, Victoria was convicted of second-degree murder for attempting to kill 4 individuals. She was sentenced to 21 years in prison, but having already served 6 years during pretrial detention, she now faces 15 years of imprisonment. Upon completing her sentence, she will be deported to Russia, where she will face charges for additional murders. Unsurprisingly, Victoria is expected to spend the rest of her life behind bars. While the story of her crimes has finally concluded, it brings a semblance of solace to the families of her unfortunate victims.